Once a month we talk about current topics in the Bart and Dennis B&D series. This time we talk about the success of the Greens in the European Union Parliament elections, homeopathy and postdocs. And we have an exciting announcement. There will be a prize for you to win. So keep listening. As always, you can listen to the whole conversation on Patreon. Patreon is a community service that enables you to support our work with a monthly pledge. If you like what my volunteers Bart Geurten and Susanne Lehmburg and I are creating, please consider to contribute. You can learn everything about it on the Patreon website www.patreon.com/cypherprogress. I am looking forward to meeting you in our monthly member meetings on Discord. And thanks to everyone who is already supporting us, it really helps a lot. My name is Dennis Eckmeyer, my co-host is Bart Geurten, and you're listening to episode 28 of the Science for Societal Progress podcast. Hey Bart.
Hey Dennis.
How are you
are
doing?
things? Haha, I asked first.
Things are good. I'm trying to get some money together for Science for Progress and some other science communication projects that I would like to do, but I need funding first. So I've been writing to a lot of people. And I've also been recording a couple of interviews for future podcasts for the next couple of months. So they're all prepared. The next interview that will be released in 2 weeks will be about the Energiewende. For those who don't know, Energiewende is the German word and the German project to transition the power generation or the energy industry actually into renewable sources. And I got lucky. And when I contacted the Helmholtz Institute, I was put into contact with Professor Dr. Rüdiger Eichel, and he's the director of the Institute for Energy and Climate Research at the Research Center in Jülich in Germany. And he will explain to us the goals that Germany has for this transition away from fossil fuels to renewable sources, and what his own institute is working on, things like this. Very interesting stuff.
So he's the head of the institute?
Yeah, he's the director, exactly.
Nice.
I know.
You're going places, man. Oh, that's a smooth transition to our first topic, isn't it? Like from renewable energies to the European elections and the tremendous
elections? Oh, yeah.
and the tremendous success of the ecologist parties.
Which is all Rizzo's fault.
Oh, I think also this is mostly not known by non-German listeners.
What? But all of Europe voted more green this time, so everybody must have seen Rizzo's video.
There's a German YouTuber. There are such things as German YouTubers, and he is called Rizzo. Yeah, Rizzo. And he made a video about why not to vote for the Conservative Party and how they actually endanger the environment, etc., etc. And seemingly the media took this as the pivoting moment of German politics, which will lead into the idea that if not, how many people, 2 million, saw that video, we would have voted for the Conservatives.
Yeah. Because that's how young people are. They always vote for the Christian conservatives. It also completely ignores the fact that there have been the youth has been on strike for like half a year every Friday. And they're like, oh no, it's all Rizzo's fault.
I voted for the Greens, but I had some problems with that. Because they have a very strong opinion about animal experiments, and it's not very differentiated between where animal consumption is okay and where it could be reduced. But it's a general no to animal experiments.
Yeah. They are also strongly against all genetic alterations in agriculture, which is also a big problem for me. So these two things are the main things that why I don't like the Green Party. I would actually have thought that you would vote for the Humanists or something like that, but maybe those parties are too small.
So the Humanists are basically an scientific party. They want evidence-based politics, which sounds awesome to me. I would totally subscribe to that. The problem, though, is they have not enough power to start real movement, and we need some action in Germany towards climate change, and voting for them wouldn't bring direct change in any which way. On top of that, sure. I fear there is no general politic theme in their party. And this is, I learned this very late in my view of politics. This seems to be a very important thing. If you don't have like a general theme, something that people can align their thoughts with, you get this vacuum of politics that we have in Germany where things are pragmatically pretty good. Like, I'm not a fan of Angela Merkel, but she does pretty pragmatic, pretty solid job.
Yeah.
But that creates this empty space that then populists and right-wing parties can use to build up their own movement. But on top of that, she's still not in my corner of politics. She's still very conservative. She has very conservative views. But like, if I look around in German politics, it's really hard to find somebody of the same caliber in any other party. That's really problematic. It's especially problematic since the Social Democrats that I usually voted for have at the moment really nothing to offer, like personal-wise or politic-wise. And it's horrific because their policies are not too bad. You can use them and they are good common sense politics, but I don't see anybody who would be able to take over chancellorship anytime soon.
Right. So with the Social Democrats, I personally think of myself as being a Social Democrat because, I mean, the two are just two good things, right? Being social and being a Democrat. These are just good things, right?
No, I think at the moment they really have a problem that I guess till 1990s you could still reach a lot of people by using the social argument. And still, if you look at Social Democrat policies, they are still always thinking about what will this do to the jobs? Can we do climate change without changing the jobs? Will more people be unemployed? What about the employment rate?
Right.
And as much as I understand that view, climate change has more priority. And of course, this will change jobs. You are not going to be a coal miner in a renewable energy society. And I'm sorry for all the coal miners, which I think are great people and it's a great job, but we also don't have wagon rights anymore. And these were also great people with great jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also
time goes on.
There's also this traditional link with unions in the mining industry of the Social Democrats, which also leads to this situation where the Social Democrats are actually also in the government, right? Nobody talks about them for some reason. Everybody just talks about the larger party in the government, which are the Christian Democrats. So the Merkel party, but they're also in the government, and still jobs have been lost in the renewable energy sector under their leadership.
So the regulation that you're actually citing is the so-called Einspeisevergütung, which means that you got money from the German state if you put energy back into the system. So you could have your own solar panels, and the state would guarantee a price at which you can sell your energy to the energy system. That was pretty good, because then basically everybody who would build a house would build some solar panels and say over like whatever number of years, this will produce a profit. And then we reached a certain level of solar power and people said, we might not need the Einspeisevergütung anymore, and just cancelled it. And then people were not interested anymore in building solar panels on their houses. Which doesn't mean that there's no solar panels, because you can also have solar panels on your house, not for electricity production, but for warm water production. And most people then started building those because this saves a lot of energy as well.
You clearly know the situation better. You know more about the details. All I remember was that jobs were lost in the solar panel production industry, and China totally took over where we were leading in solar panel production before, and now China is leading. And we won't be able to reverse that. We have 20,000 jobs in coal, and we are talking about them like they were the holy grail or something, whereas the 80,000 in solar panel production apparently weren't the big deal.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is really problematic. And I mean, that was the reason why I didn't vote for the Social Democrats this time, but for the Greens, because I think the Social Democrats have no workable plan for climate change at the moment.
I don't even know their plan.
But the original topic was, what's the downside of the Green vote? And the downside I see is animal rights activists and weird scaremongering about genetic tools.
Right. We can't forget that also a lot of Green voters are people who are into alternative medicine.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a secular party in the sense that they're like super science driven. They seem to, like, I think every party does that. They pick the science that fits their ideology, and they ignore the science that doesn't. And I think you'll find that in any party. But that is something that makes it, for me, in general, hard to choose any party. So I've been voting like very tiny, non-significant parties for the last two elections because of that, because I couldn't really choose from the big ones.
So yeah, the Green Party has some weird love to esoteric therapies in medicine.
I don't know if there's a big official stance on that, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of their voters do. And since we are in Germany now discussing to get rid of homeopathy, more or less, or at least get rid of the insurance companies covering homeopathy.
Yeah.
That we won't get that change if the Green Party is in power.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a fear that I would have.
For the international listeners, it might be important to know that in Germany, you can choose a health insurance company, but this is a heavily regulated market, and where basically all health insurance companies offer more or less the same service, and where all your medical costs are covered, regardless if you're employed or not.
Mm-hmm. And if you're employed, then you pay for it yourself. And if you're unemployed, then the state will pay for you.
Yes. But one of the problems, though, is that everybody who is employed chips into the insurance company. Mm-hmm. And that means that with the taxes and the insurance money I pay, I also have to finance homeopathy treatments. If somebody thinks he needs one, like if he has not enough blood sugar, I don't know, or wants to get cheap sweets. I really don't get it. But like even the insurance companies, if pushed to an answer, say that there's no evidence beyond the placebo effect of homeopathy. And on the other hand, they really don't like to answer this question because a lot of Germans request this treatment and they want to pay it into the insurance. They want them to pay into the insurance company.
Right.
Funnily enough, that's one thing where it's actually kind of interesting. Economically, this actually is working because most people who want an homeopathic treatment actually are parents who want that for their children. Mm-hmm. And they are less often sick and so the parents are less often sick than, for example, an old person who statistically you produce the most health insurance costs at the end of your life. So you want to actually get those people in early so that they pay in a lot before they go into pension and then produce a lot of costs. So most insurance companies don't ban homeopathy because they want to attract those parents.
Mm-hmm.
I think outside of Germany, all this kind of treatment is actually called quackery. And for example, for example, if you would be a homeopathist in Austria, you could be sued for doing so. If you call that a medical treatment. In Germany, it's allowed to call it a medical treatment for, to me, unfathomable reasons.
Yeah, but this is not, I mean, you say like only in Germany this is the case, but in the UK, they just changed it recently, I think last year, that the NHS isn't covering homeopathy anymore. In fact, I think the royal family is very in favor of homeopathy. There was a guy, Edzard Ernst. He was a homeopath, and he was professor for alternative medicine in London. And he did actual studies finding out that all this stuff doesn't work, which changed his beliefs about it, but also got him in trouble with the royal family. And then his position wasn't extended at some point.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, another case of that is Natalie Grams, who was a homeopath and who sat down to write a book about homeopathy and how it works. And then she did all the studies because she was also an MD and went through all the papers. And at the end, when she was like, did all her research, she said like, that doesn't work at all. Right. And wrote a book about like how it didn't work.
Exactly. The book turned out very different.
And how she convinced herself that this is nonsense.
Right.
Yeah. And like this week, I think it became clear that the Hayward company actually tried to sue her for money so that she would stop to say that homeopathy has no effect above the placebo effect.
Exactly. So they sent her a thing. What's it called? Cease and desist?
Cease and desist, yeah.
For her to sign that she would not repeat the phrase homeopathy doesn't work beyond the placebo effect or has no effect beyond placebo. And she didn't sign it. And so there was a big thing about it on the internet. She's very active in the German skeptics societies. And I wrote a short article about it So I often see these things happen in Germany, and I feel like there should be something in English about it. This should be known internationally. So this time I decided to just write a very short piece on this and put it on our website. And it actually got a lot of reads. I was very surprised. I guess I'll have to do this more often because the site visits went up a lot. And not just from Germany, there were also a lot of clicks coming from the United States, for example. So, yeah, hot topic.
Yeah, especially since Karl Lauterbach, now we can flip back to the old topic. Karl Lauterbach is the chief medical advisor of the Social Democrats, said that this is unbearable and shouldn't be done, and that homeopathy doesn't have an effect above the placebo effect. And he did this, and everybody was like, yes, that's exactly what we say, and why not put it into policy? Why not ban this nonsense once and forever?
Right.
And there was a very small group of these skeptics who said, like, who is at the moment opening the Grand Convention on Homeopathy in Germany? And turns out it's Manuela Schwesig, the minister president from one of our states, who is a social democrat.
Oh.
And I was like, that's really one of the problems I have with politics. It's so hard to get one stance from these people.
Right.
Like I would vote for Karl Lauterbach directly if I could to be the health minister, because he's very data driven. He has very clear views on many important topics in science and medicine.
Is that the guy with a tie?
Yeah, that's the guy with the tie. He basically looks like Bill Nye if Bill Nye would be much less charismatic.
That's true.
But he has the same nerdy vibe. And definitely I would vote for that guy. Karl Lauterbach is a brilliant politician. But yeah, on the other hand, you have people like Manuela Schwesig, who at the same time, in the same party, go and open the grand meeting of homeopathy.
Yeah, so that goes back to what I said about the Green Party. I just don't think they really have a party line about this. There is they didn't talk about it. There is no decision. There was no decision made what the party line is on that topic. And I don't think that's a good situation.
No, there has to be. I think that's not a good situation, but it's a situation that all parties share. We would need a less confusing stance or less confusing party program from many of those.
Yeah.
No, anyhow. And on top of that, Natalie got a lot of feedback from Twitter and other media outlets. Facebook, and I hope Hebert can't go through with their threats against like basically the truth of the matter.
Right. It's also ironic because people who are for homeopathy, and Hebert themselves do that too, they go around and say there are lobbyists behind people like Nathalie Grams who want homeopathy gone because it's a cheap alternative to big pharma stuff. But in reality, it's still the pharma industry that is producing homeopathy. It's the same industry. And they have financial interests to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So they're literally a pharmaceutical company trying to silence a critic. So that's literally what homeopathy proponents say about the critics. And I think that's quite ironic.
Oh, wait. What about the Christmas episode, man?
I said there won't be one.
Oh, come on.
How are you still talking about Christmas? There won't be a Christmas episode. Christmas is for stupid people.
No, it's for people who like presents. Do you have any other suggestion for the Christmas episode everybody wants?
We could do something live. Do you want to do something live?
But we curse a lot and you have to always cut all the curses out.
Well, not if we do it live.
Live sounds good.
So August will be a summer break. We can do it in July before the break. The break is in August. We do it in July.
In July. Okay, fair enough.
So 4 weeks from now?
No, wait. We do the following thing. You and I both look for the trashiest nonsense science that we can find.
Okay.
And we read it to each other. And the first guy who has to laugh 3 times loses. And I win. Okay. I win this thing because you laugh all the time.
It's true. I laugh a lot. But so do you. Ha.
Okay. It's on, boy. Listeners, send me all your trash science that you can find.
Yeah, me too.
No, don't send it to Dennis. Send it to me. Be Team Bart on this thing.
Yeah, you can also be Team Dennis on this thing. I think you should be Team Dennis.
Oh, that's great. Then let's make a Bart Science for Progress email.
Okay. And I'll make a Dennis at Science for Progress email. Where
you can send your best scientific nonsense stories.
Yes, they need to be hilarious, though, right? The other guy needs to laugh their ass off. Otherwise, I don't win. So it will be Sunday, July 7th. And stay tuned for more information on which platform it will be and at what time. You know who else is scammed? Postdocs, man.
This is the most brilliant segue of them all. I love it. From homeopathy directly into postdocs, sliding through.
It's the same amazing thing, basically.
Yeah. I totally feel like it.
The postdoc position is basically globally.
So
that's another news you got, right? Your position is now permanent. You're not a temporary postdoc anymore.
Oh yeah, that's true. But I'm still paid as a postdoc. No kidding.
Well,
Nothing
but you got
changed.
on some increase in planning security, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's true. And I'm very grateful for that. By the
Yeah,
way, also to my boss Martin Göpfert who made that possible.
yeah.
Like
I think it's a
with
good
all
thing.
with all the bitching I do, I have to say that he really fights for those things. And without his hard work and without Ralph Heinrich, who also did a lot of work in that regard, that wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Anyhow,
mean, this is this
yeah,
is this is great, right? I mean, anything anything is good in what makes your situation better. It doesn't have to be a salary increase, in my
yeah.
opinion.
I directly starting at 9 and went home at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, that's
Because
what you do.
this is what happens if scientists finally get a permanent job. They directly stop working. What I found interesting about this talk is that I had a completely different view of postdocs,
Hmm.
and that was really interesting because in your interview, you both seem to agree that this is like a learning situation and some part of supported career development. And
Right.
I never saw it as that.
Yeah, so I was actually surprised that you thought about that differently, because that's how I learned it when I was still in Germany. So I talked with my boss, Joachim, Hajo, Hans Joachim, and he explained it to me this way. So in the past, the postdoc was a very temporary thing that people did after their PhD to learn some new methods or something and generate or develop their own research ideas and questions, and then they would become professors. And because back in the day there were relatively so the ratio between people with PhDs and open professor positions was very good. They would do a postdoc for like 2 or 3 years, and then they would become professors in the US, and then that would be tenure track. Whereas in Germany, they would then transition into the Habilitation, which is kind of like a intermediate. So it's not fully independent, and you have an actual qualification at the end, the Habilitation, which allows you to be a teacher, higher education teacher.
So because yeah, but interestingly though, I am just doing my habilitation, but I still thought of this like basically now I'm a researcher and I still get some support by a professor if I write a grant or if I have to teach, he's going to tell me like his experience with that course or gives me like his old slides or something like that. But I never thought about it like this guy is going to give me some sort of task that I'm going to learn about and then become a better researcher. Like totally different from the PhD where this actually happened, where like Martin Egelhoff would come around and say like, try to do this experiment this way, and would even show me how to do that experiment.
Yeah, right. So I think that's what we meant when we said something about apprenticeships. That it's not actually like a teaching thing, like in a PhD. It's more like you're given the opportunity to do quote unquote grown up things, right? Like you do things for the professor, and by doing so, with the help of the professor, if you have questions and stuff, you grow into who you have to be in order to be able to become a professor yourself.
Okay, I
This can
think
have
that's a
different
very
this can have different styles, right? Some might be more like a really a teacher who gives you a task and then they grade you on this or something. Or it can be more subtle. So in your case, obviously, you just be given a lot of freedom.
yeah, that's all for me. That was awesome because I could do whatever I like. And my experience as a postdoc was I'll come to the lab of Martin Göpfert and he shows me like his ideas about genetics and how to analyze these in Drosophila. And we do some projects together and we still do that from time to time if we have something that we think both about like as interesting. We work it from different angles and it's basically like the same kind of collaboration that I would have with any other person in the world, but basically because we are just on the same floor, this is much closer. And but I never had the feeling that I'm personally working for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he never came up with ideas like, would you look at this paper and write a review on it, and then I hand it in.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he would discuss a paper with me, but basically over a cup of coffee in the coffee room, like, what's your idea about that and that experiment? Do you think it's valid? But I also had these discussions with other scientific colleagues that were not my direct supervisor.
I'm not so sure, because if you look into what you hear about the German system, your situation seems to be rather unique too. So I don't know if that's across fields, that maybe in neuroscience, because I remember, so the postdocs that I know and seen in neuroscience in Germany usually had a better situation. But when I see articles about the postdoc experience in Germany, it also says that they are jumping from temporary position to temporary position, and they don't have contracts that are more than 2 years, and then the funding is gone, and things like that.
My contracts were also not longer than 2 years. And for a very long time I was on yearly contracts. Not saying that this is ideal, but on the other hand, I can understand that the head of a lab, if there's not that many positions that you can fill for longer at the moment, and that's not so much a problem of the professor, but a problem of the funding system that basically only gives you short-time contracts. Even if you look at a bigger DFG grant, which is like the ones that everybody in Germany strives for, they run for 3 years. They basically say that they want the PhDs to finish in 2.5, which is really hard in a experimental neurophysiological project.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the timeline that they expect, 2.5 years.
Well, that fits the old idea of the postdoc, where you're supposed to do postdocs for 2 or 3 years and then become independent. But that doesn't fit the reality, where people are postdocing 6 to 8 years on average before they even start applying for professorships.
Totally true.
Yeah.
I think that's much too late. Question though is if where the real problem is. The real problem, I think, is in people taking up postdoc positions, even so they are not really clear about science. And I don't want to do victim blaming here.
They're not clear if they want to do the
academic career path. Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And this is kind of an iffy topic, because on the one hand, there's no clear career path in academia. Like everybody that you talk to who's a professor usually has a very special story how this came to pass. Like some supernatural combination of events happening, and then suddenly they became a professor. But basically, like
the typical career path is PhD, postdoc, professor, right?
Yeah, but like if you ask somebody what was your defining moment where you became a professor, it's usually like, I had this super important meeting and I was on second place for that professorship, and then the guy or the woman on the first place got an even better offer or fell down a cliff, and then suddenly I became the professor.
Right.
And stories like those. It's very seldomly that somebody says, I wrote this paper, that paper, then I got this grant, then I wrote those 2 papers, then I got another grant, and then I finally reached postdoc experience leveled up, and I was professor then.
Yes, it's not like as a student, right, where you go to the courses, you get your points, your credits, and then you hand them in, and then congratulations, now you're a master in neuroscience or something. Those days are over.
Yeah, but I understand that if the whole system that pushed you there worked on this premise, And it worked on the premise that if you work enough and hard enough, then you will actually succeed in this way. And then suddenly, after the PhD tables, like the rules are changed, and everybody says like, it's still, we still want you to work really, really long hours, but it now becomes a game of luck.
Yeah.
And not of merit anymore. That's problematic. Not to,
exactly.
I don't want to say that the people who have professorships didn't earn them through merits. Just say that suddenly the merit part becomes as large as pure luck.
Right. And that's something that, of course, becomes worse the more postdocs you have and the fewer professor positions.
And on top of that, this makes this idea of a learning phase postdoc even worse. Because if this is basically luck, then your postdoc phase should already be more driven by curiosity and real scientific approaches, because this might be the last chance that you can do science in academia. So why waste it with like doing peer reviews for your boss instead of doing the experiments that you think would drive the field forward? Also, why is your boss coming up with this shitty idea of not using your brilliant young and fresh mind to do some really crazy experiments that nobody thought of before?
Yes. I totally agree with that. So you have these two kinds of people who go into a postdoc, the ones who want to become a professor and the ones who don't actually want to become a professor and who are only postdocs because there is no other position. If there were still staff researchers, I'm pretty sure there would be a lot of currently postdocs who would switch to there. And they would not have to take a pay cut in order to have the right to stay in academia, because that's what the pay cut is basically justified by saying, oh, but we are preparing you to become a professor, which most of the people aren't experiencing. Because that's what the postdoc is supposed to be, right? Qualification phase.
But wait, so a staff scientist in the US is paid more than a postdoc?
Mm-hmm.
See, there's also a very big difference. When I said I didn't get paid more, is because I got paid a staff scientist salary in Germany.
Right.
So basically between me and all my colleagues is no difference except of the professors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a thing in Germany, that you're actually hired by the university, except, and that reminds me of your PhD, when you were on a fellowship. And you can be on a fellowship as a postdoc, right? And then you're not hired. These are different systems. And I must say, so in Portugal, for example, everybody is on stipends. Not even just PhDs and postdocs. A lot of other positions too are on stipends. And the thing is that, yes, you don't have to pay taxes on them, which in the US you have. You have to pay taxes on your stipend in the US. But it's the same thing in Portugal as in Germany, where you don't have to pay taxes on a stipend, but you have to pay your social security yourself, and you have to pay, if you want, extra health care, which in Portugal a lot of people have, but it's also not that expensive. Okay, so healthcare isn't actually a big deal. But overall, these stipends are very low. I think that is still coming from the EU austerity measures, and there have been demonstrations against these very low stipends in academia in Portugal. So yeah, the postdoc experience is very different in different situations, and you seem to have what I think is totally fine as a postdoc experience.
I might have been super lucky. That I agree on that.
Right. Whereas in the US, apparently most people aren't lucky. Based on the research that they did in the Future of Research project that we were talking about in the last podcast episode.
What I just thought about is that I think, like, one of the things that I really can say is that I basically at all times liked my job. And I think not only the scientific part, that usually is great, but the best part about being in academia is, from my point of view, working with all these students and like helping them to create a career for themselves, but also harvesting their ideas for questions that you had.
And this is it for this time. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And don't forget to tune in on our next episode on the Energiewende in 2 weeks. And mark your calendar for Sunday, July 7th for our first stab at a live video show. Yes, you will be able to watch us. Send us your funniest para and pseudoscience stories. If you support Bart, send it to bart@scienceforprogress.eu. And if you support me, send it to dennis@scienceforprogress.eu. We will randomly select one of you to get a free t-shirt from our merchandise store. And as always, I thank all of our patrons who support us so generously. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.